Our skill is netball shooting. Our 4-week training program will be based around a novice netballer who is in the cognitive stage of learning. And by the end of the program, we expect them to be in the associative stage of learning. The following video is presented to you by Georgie, Ruby and Jordan.
To classify the skill one-dimensionally, the netball shot is classified as gross because it requires large muscle groups to produce actions. It is discrete because it has an identifiable beginning and end point, and it is a closed skill because the performer initiates the action and the environmental context is stable.
Gentile's two-dimensional taxonomy theory is composed of the environmental context and the function of the actions. For the netball shot, the regulatory conditions which are characteristics of the environment that control the movement include the netball itself and the ring height, which are stationary, and the weather or the amount of people, which are in motion. The intertrial variability refers to regulatory conditions that are the same or different from one performance of the skill to another, for example, different defender's height or pressure of the situation, and also fatigue. The other dimension is obviously function of the actions, and for netball shooting, it is to have a stable body and to manipulate the object.
Key aspects of the netball shot are focusing on legs, feet are shoulder width apart and knees slightly bent, arms above the head and elbows are bent, ready to straighten, and lastly wrist and hands. The ball is placed in the fingers, not the palm, and the wrist is extended, ready to flex. The information was attained through Steele's research on biomechanical effects affecting performance in netball.
To measure performance, we're going to put together a quantitative and a qualitative analysis of goal shooting. A quantitative analysis will include how many goals scored in a set period. For example, 10 shots from 1 metre away, 10 shots from 2 metres away, and counting the result. A qualitative analysis we'll be using will be to focus on the key aspects of the skill, specifically the motion of the shot. We're going to use a scale ranked 1 to 5, from poor to excellent, and we will give them a grade pre-training, post the 4 weeks training, a retention test, and this will show us whether, even if the numbers don't improve, the motion itself may have been improved, and more importantly, learnt. Week 1 will be introducing the basic netball shot and doing a quantitative and qualitative measure. Week 2 will be breaking up the netball shot, showing drills and introducing verbal cues. Week 3 will be receiving a pass and shooting under pressure, also a transfer test. And week 4, a retention test on all of the above, also a quantitative and a qualitative measure. The transfer tests will be bringing the shot into a game situation, for example, receiving the passes and shooting under pressure. Within the cognitive stage, we can usually expect that the participant cannot adapt. However, with the participant being in the associative stage, they can adapt. Within our retention test, in week 4, we'll be after 6 days break from the last training session and we'll not practice the skill prior to the test, so we can see just how much they've learned.
Fitz proposed 3 stages of motor learning. These stages consisted of the cognitive stage. In relation to the netball shot, the learner will look at the movement in a broad perspective, shooting the goal under no pressure. Secondly, the associative stage, the player can receive a pass from the top of the ring and then take the shot to practice the motions of receiving the ball and turning it to shoot. And thirdly, the autonomous stage, shooting after receiving a pass and turning to shoot with a defender present with ease and without too much thought. Transfer of learning refers to learning in one situation affecting how you learn or perform in another situation. It is used on a day-to-day basis. As a group, we use a positive transfer between netball and basketball. Understanding and remembering new information is important in positive transfer. 2 good examples of transfer of learning are meaningful learning and elaboration. In relation to netball, the 5-step theory is: Step 1, mentally, physically and emotionally concentrating, getting in the zone and ready to perform. Step 2, imagining yourself shooting the goal. Step 3, familiarising yourself with the verbal cues, BEF. Step 4, shooting the goal, taking a break before evaluating performance. Step 5, did you miss? Why? What influences were there? Bilateral transfer means potentially training to shoot with the right hand but then seeing an improvement in the left hand. It is very hard in netball as it is difficult to swap the hands you want to shoot with. A netball shooter has a predominant arm for shooting and it is difficult to change.
To set goals, we use Durant's SMART approach. S being a specific goal such as shooting 100 goals a night opposed to shooting some goals every night. M being measurable through qualitative and quantitative tests as well as retention and transfer tests. A for attainable, where we break the skill into steps to enhance goals scored. R for realistic, which could be scoring 80% of all shots opposed to 100%. And lastly is T for timing, 4 weeks to learn how to properly shoot. Short-term goals we chose was working on each movement separately, so bending the knees fluently, extending the elbow in a straight line and following through with the wrist. and long-term goals is joining all the movements together to successfully shoot a goal with the correct technique in a game situation. Other ways to improve goal shooting technique could include lying with your back on the ground and throwing a ball in the air vertically to practice wrist follow through. You can also improve goal shooting technique by standing under a goal ring and shooting with one hand to practice the 3 cues: knees, elbows and wrists. We had an adequate demonstration of the goal being shot with no verbal instruction and then explained how the shot was taken. This involves the teacher physically demonstrating the skill, then explaining what they did. The learner then had the opportunity to perform the skill themselves. After the demonstration, the particular key aspects are mentioned. Verbal cues and instructions need to capture the learner's attention with no distractions. It should focus on the movement pattern and should be kept clear and concise. The verbal cue we used was BEF. Bend your knees, extend your elbow and follow through with your wrist. Verbal cues can encourage self-talk and further enhance the learning of our skill, as well as motivation and encouragement, which is vital for a learner's success.
B for B.
Augmented feedback refers to enhancing information, however, it does not take over and can be positive or negative. Performance-related information is added to or enhancing task intrinsic feedback and external social surroundings. 2 main categories are knowledge of results, which is a performance of the skill, which could be improvements, and the knowledge of performance, which could be a video replay of the shot. 2 main roles are to facilitate achievement of action goals and to motivate the learner. In relation to netball, knowledge of results could be missing the goal, and knowledge of performance could be, I didn't bend my knees, I forgot to do this, rather than I missed the goal. The AUG group showed a significantly greater improvement in scoring performance, highlighting the importance of augmented feedback in the acquisition of complex motor skills. The current study provides a bridging step between laboratory motor learning and applied research.
Distributed practice, which are shorter and more frequent sessions, will be implemented in this training program. Better learning outcomes derive from this form of training, and as our participant is a local-based netballer, little travel is required and therefore it is practical. The sessions being 3 times a week for 30 minutes each sessions will enable the practice under guidance. However, basic, easy-to-do drills will be set for home practice to take the skill to another level and hopefully lead to optimal learning. In week 4 of the program, however, we'll be doing massed practice for the retention test to be put in place, 1 90-minute session after 6 days off. How we plan the sessions is vital in improvement for a skill such as netball goal shooting. We need to give the participant variability in training and also allow them to explore when training, and for the coach to ease off a bit to let the participant problem solve for themselves. As defined earlier, the netball shot is more of a closed skill. The regulatory conditions include the ball, height of the ring, dimensions of the court, and so forth. Non-regulatory conditions include opposition defenders and the weather, so forth. There is no inter-trial variability of the regulatory conditions in training without defenders, so therefore we will change the non-regulatory conditions once the basics of the skill have been learnt and throw in defenders and other variables like fatigue. We need to be specific in what the participant will do in a game, and therefore in training we will start with learning the netball shot and move it to a game scenario with pressure involved, how there would be in a game, to make it more specific. Thanks for listening to our 4-week training program of the netball shot.